Spain has been absent on the world stage for well over a century. During its heydays of imperial power, it reigned over the Americas and dictated the Atlantic trade. Nowadays, the country has humbly retreated to its immediate geography, but that is no reason to count it out. In March 2021, the Spanish government revealed a new policy in which it seeks to forge closer economic and institutional ties with African states. The endgame is to strengthen Spanish influence abroad to secure political and economic interests at home. The plan envisions Spanish multinationals and conglomerates embedding themselves in the recently launched African Free Trade Zone. It's a daring move, and the rivalry is tense. Then again, geopolitics is a gamble at terrible odds, and if there is to be gambling, you want to bet on yourself. I'm your host Shirvan, and welcome to Caspian Report. Today's video is sponsored by War Planet Online, a free-to-play strategy game set in the not-so-distant future where hostilities have erupted over world's diminishing natural resources. To me, this plot sounds eerily familiar to current global affairs. In War Planet Online, diplomacy has failed, and your task is to amass a powerful army and seize whatever you need. My favorite part of the game is the base building. The graphics look neat, and you can customize it however you wish. Plus, I appreciate the fact that the game uses an accurate world map complete with national borders. So if you've ever wanted to conquer Asia or rule over the Americas, here's your chance. Though I have noticed that conquering the planet is not something you can do alone. You're going to need allies. There are thousands of other players who can either help you take new areas or prevent you from doing so. Click on the link below to try out War Planet Online and put your skills to the test. Spain is an oddball. Situated in southwest Europe in the Iberian Peninsula, Spain is noticeably distinct from the rest of the region. The Atlantic Ocean, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Pyrenees Mountains shield the country all around, making it separate from Europe. As such, Spain has historically acted as a gatekeeper of sorts, preferring to focus on maritime trade in its surroundings. By its very nature, Spain has a sense of separation from global affairs. It didn't partake in World War II and remained passive throughout the Cold War. It remained a dictatorship well into the 1970s, it joined NATO only in the 1990s, and it doesn't share Europe's anxieties of Russia and China. The only reason Spain joins the European programs is because it is obligated to do so as a member of the European Union. Other than that, Spain prefers to go about its own business, and that internal focus is rightly so. Spain's primary geopolitical focus is within. Madrid, the seat of Spanish authority, was deliberately chosen as the capital to centralize power within the realm. However, the hills, valleys, and mountains of the Iberian Peninsula hinder lines of communication between different regions within the country. Separatist and secessionist movements are spread across the landscape, in particular in Catalonia and Basque country. For much of its modern history, Madrid has focused on rallying the divergent communities under a single banner. That goal, striking a balance between the central government and the regional stakeholders, still holds true. But now the leadership in Madrid is looking beyond its horizon. As recently as March 2021, Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez launched a new policy to strengthen economic ties with a host of African nations. Dubbed as Focus Africa 2023, the policy describes Spain as Europe's southern gateway, which makes perfect sense. The Strait of Gibraltar divides Spain from Africa, but it's only 15 kilometers wide at its narrowest. Plus, the Spanish enclaves of Ceuta and Melilla are situated on the African continent, while the Spanish Canary Islands sit just off the African coast. Thus, even though Spain has historically held fewer African colonies than the likes of France or Britain, Madrid is hardly a stranger to the continent. Membership in the EU and NATO does not fully meet Spain's economic and security needs. In fact, at certain points, the interests contradict one another. being part of the Eurozone greatly restricts Spain's access to funding and regulates its spending behavior. EU membership affects the way Madrid forms trade relations and the way it interacts with partners outside the bloc. For Spain, this is a painful concession of sovereignty. When developing a trade policy, one must imagine itself at the center of things, just as France and Germany sit at the heart of the European Union. However, in the case of Spain, it has been forced to sit in the corner, foregoing many opportunities. Madrid hasn't been able to interact with Africa in the way it wants. Spanish lawmakers want to change that outlook, and we're better to start than Africa. The continent is physically close, and many of Spain's security concerns originate from Africa. The migrant crisis, for instance, deeply affects Spain. In 2020, more African immigrants ended up in Spain via the Western Mediterranean route than any other path. Clearly, Madrid needs an African strategy, and the new policy seeks to do precisely that by promoting Spanish influence. Taking a page from the French playbook, Spanish policymakers seek to boost soft power through education. Though Spanish is not a major language in Africa, the Focus Africa paper nevertheless seeks to enroll more African students in Spanish universities. The idea is that upon graduation, the students would increase Spanish soft power in the civil services of the respective African nations, thereby gluing Africa to Spain at an institutional level. Spain's new Africa policy also encourages Spanish companies to expand their operations in the continent, and for good reasons. By 2025, Africa will have over 100 cities, with each more than 1 million inhabitants. By 2050, Africa's population will eclipse 2.4 billion people. The continent will steadily emerge as a destination for offshore manufacturing. Production and consumption will surge, while new value chains will develop over time. Even now, foreign investors are constructing highways, ports, and railways across the continent. Spain wants to, and frankly needs to be, part of that process. The Focus Africa policy places special emphasis on Nigeria, Ethiopia, and South Africa, identified as the giants of sub-Saharan Africa. Meanwhile, Senegal, Ivory Coast, Ghana, Kenya, Angola, Mozambique, and Tanzania are highlighted as priority markets, while Morocco, Algeria, Egypt, Rwanda, and Uganda are deemed as countries of economic interest. That's quite a list. Spain wants to grow into a major trading partner in these up-and-coming markets, and Spanish lawmakers aren't wasting time. Shortly after unveiling the new strategy, Sanchez visited Angola and Senegal in early April. He called on Spanish companies to blend into the African Continental Free Trade Zone, which has been active for several years, but only opened for business in January 2021. The bloc covers 54 of the continent's 55 nations, and is estimated to include 2.4 billion people by 2050. The launch of the African Free Trade Area was jump-started by Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo, who called on the European Union to support the new trade bloc. On behalf of the EU, Spain is happy to oblige. When Sanchez launched his new Africa strategy, Akufo-Addo happened to be there. So Spain's timing is no accident. It coincides with the launch of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement 2 months earlier. Furthermore, the Focus Africa strategy comes at a time when most European countries are clashing among themselves or focusing on regional rivalries. The odds of a backlash from European competitors such as France and Italy are slim. They are too preoccupied with other places. Plus, Spain's lack of geopolitical commitments elsewhere means that it can dedicate more assets to accomplish goals, giving Madrid a free hand to set the terms in the new Africa trading bloc. If played correctly, the next decade could see a grand return of Spanish power. Even now, Spain is embroiled in African industries. Spanish companies participate in numerous high-profile projects in various parts of the continent. most of them focusing on renewable energy. For instance, Spanish firms took part in constructing the world's largest solar power plant in Morocco and Africa's largest wind power farm in Kenya. As a result of these mega projects, Spanish firms have made a name for themselves in recent years. Altogether, Spanish exports to Africa account for more than $23 billion per 2019, while imports were worth up to $33 billion. That's a nice sum, but Spain wants to expand those figures. The trouble, however, is that Spanish businesses are wary of investing in Africa due to the political instability. Corruption is high, transparency is non-existent, public moods swing back and forth, and security cannot be guaranteed. Africa is not an easy place to do business in, the risks are high. That said, it helps when one has warships parked just outside, which is precisely what the Spanish policy calls for. More specifically, the Spanish Navy is set to increase its activities in the Gulf of Guinea by sending warships to patrol coastlines, fight piracy, and provide humanitarian aid when needed. Meanwhile, Spanish special forces are to intercept, disrupt, and destroy routes for illicit trafficking across the Sahel region. Through its actions in the Gulf of Guinea and the Sahel, Spain aims to bring a sense of security and predictability to places where its interests come together. If it works, it would not only boost Spanish influence and business, but also reduce the flow of migrants and refugees from these places. Still interesting, most of the Spanish programs are part of EU projects. The educational effort, the naval missions, and the free trade bloc are all part of EU-backed programs. So, technically, the Focus Africa policy is a EU strategy, with Spain spearheading the whole endeavor. The more responsibilities Madrid takes, the deeper it is committed to Africa and the greater its leverage becomes within the European Union, which France and Germany have mostly dominated. Hence, by expanding its footprint in Africa, Spain also gains more say within the European bloc. However one looks at things, Spain would gain influence at home and abroad. Thus far, everything sounds good, at least on paper. In practice, things will be different. Competing in the designated markets will place Spanish interests face to face with Chinese, Russian, French, American, Italian, Portuguese goals. With so many rivals, things are bound to get ugly. To compete in Africa will require Madrid to bend the rules, like everyone else. In fact, in some places, especially considering the vastness of the Sahel, Spain would have to join forces with actors who have overlapping interests, such as France and Italy. In other places, though, Spain would compete with those same associates. In East Africa, Chinese, British, Turkish, Iranian, and Arab influences are plentiful. Spain would be a newcomer to this region. It would have to start from scratch, which is not going to be easy. In Central Africa, Spain would be pitted against Portugal. The two would be competing for much of the same space, but the Portuguese would have the advantage since they retain diplomatic relations with their former colonial holdings. Spain would in fact be entering Portugal's sphere of influence. From every imaginable angle, Spain would find it difficult to enter African markets. Considering the inaccessibility of the continent, Spain needs to start small. Morocco and Senegal could act as pilot designations. These two are close in proximity to Spanish territory and deemed major navigation points for migrants. Plus, Morocco and Senegal have a long history of fruitful cooperation with Spain. If Madrid cannot succeed in these two markets, then there is little hope for success elsewhere. Even so, try it must. Africa, as a place of business, is bound to thrive in the coming decades. Spain would do well to carve itself a piece of the pie and elevate itself as a transcontinental power. And even though Spain may not be the powerhouse it once was, rumors of its death have been greatly exaggerated. I've been your host Shirvan from Caspian Report. If you like what we do, please leave a like, comment and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and Saul.